Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Maybe your grandson mentioned something called ChatGPT over dinner, and you nodded along without really knowing what he meant. Maybe you saw a news story about artificial intelligence and felt a small knot of confusion, wondering if everyone else understood something you didn't. Or maybe someone at church mentioned they'd been asking the computer for advice, and you weren't sure what that even meant. If any of that sounds familiar, you're in exactly the right place. This channel exists for moments like that one. We're going to sit down together and take this one step at a time. No rushing, no jargon, no feeling left behind. There is no such thing as a silly question here, and there never will be. Today we're going to answer a simple question. What is artificial intelligence really? By the time this video ends, you'll understand what it is, in plain language, with no technical background required. You don't need to have used a computer for work. You don't need to know any special terms. You don't need to have grown up with this kind of technology. You just need a few minutes and an open mind, and we'll walk through it together, slowly, one small piece at a time. Let's start with the simple version. Artificial intelligence, often shortened to AI, is a computer program. A program is simply a set of instructions that tells a computer what to do, the same way a recipe tells you what to do in the kitchen. What makes an AI program different from an ordinary one is how it was built. Instead of a person writing out every single instruction by hand, an AI program is trained. Training means the program was shown an enormous amount of writing, conversation, and information, and over time, it learned to notice patterns in that information. A pattern is just something that repeats in a recognizable way, like noticing that a question mark usually comes after a question, or that good morning is usually followed by something about how you slept. Once an AI program has learned enough patterns, it can respond to you in a way that feels a lot like talking with another person. Even though it isn't a person at all, it doesn't think or feel the way you and I do. It's simply very, very good at recognizing patterns in language and continuing them in a way that sounds natural. You may have also heard the term chatbot. A chatbot is just a program you can have a conversation with by typing, and many chatbots today are built using artificial intelligence. So when someone says, I asked the chatbot a question, they usually mean they typed a question to an AI program and it typed back an answer. You might also hear people mention something called a large language model. That phrase sounds complicated, but the idea behind it is simple. A large language model is the kind of program we've been describing, one trained on a huge amount of written language, so it can understand words and respond with words of its own. Every time you hear that phrase in a future lesson, you can picture exactly what we just described. A program that learned language by reading a great deal of it. It also helps to say clearly what artificial intelligence is not, since that removes some of the mystery. It is not a robot walking around your house. It is not a person hiding behind the screen, typing back to you in real time. And it is not something that understands you the way a close friend does, with memory of your whole life and genuine feelings about it. It is a program running on a computer somewhere, doing something it has gotten very good at, which is recognizing patterns in language and continuing them. Here's an easy way to think about all of this. You've probably typed a text message on your phone and noticed a little suggestion pop up above the keyboard, offering the next word you might want to use. That small suggestion is a simple example of a pattern-based prediction, the computer guessing what word is likely to come next based on what it has seen before. Artificial intelligence works on a similar idea, just on a much larger scale. Instead of suggesting one word at a time, it can suggest a full, thoughtful reply, built from everything it learned during its training. Think of it as your phone's autocomplete grown up and given a much bigger vocabulary and a much better sense of context. Another way to picture it is like a very well-read librarian. This librarian has read an enormous number of books and articles, and when you ask a question, the librarian doesn't hand you a book to search through yourself. Instead, the librarian answers you directly, in plain conversation, drawing on everything they've read. Let's slow down for a second and see this in action. Picture a website called ChatGPT, one of the most well-known AI programs available today. You open the page on your computer or your phone, and you see a simple box waiting for you to type into it. Let's say you type a question, something like, what's a good way to start a small vegetable garden? You press enter, or you tap the little arrow next to the box. Within a few seconds, words begin to appear on the screen, forming full sentences, offering suggestions about sunlight, soil, and which vegetables grow well for beginners. You didn't need to install anything complicated. You didn't need any special training yourself. You typed a question in your own words, and the program answered in its own words. The same way a helpful neighbor might if you asked them over the fence. You could ask a second question right after the first one, and the program would remember what you already talked about. If you followed up by asking, which of those vegetables needs the least watering, it would understand you were still talking about the garden without you needing to explain the whole topic again. That back and forth, one question leading naturally into the next, is what makes it feel less like searching a website and more like having a conversation. That box where you type your question has a name too. It's called a prompt. A prompt is simply the message you type in, whether it's a question, a request, or just a topic you want to talk about. There's no special format required. You can type the way you'd naturally speak in full sentences, and the program will understand you. If your first prompt doesn't get you quite the answer you wanted, you can simply type again and ask it differently, the same way you might rephrase a question to a person who didn't quite understand you the first time. Now, why does any of this matter for you? Beyond the news headlines, artificial intelligence can be genuinely useful in ordinary, everyday ways. It can help you draft a birthday message to a grandchild when you're not sure how to phrase it. It can answer a quick question about a recipe substitution while you're cooking. It can help you plan a simple travel itinerary, explain an unfamiliar word from a letter you received, or summarize a long article into a few short sentences. These are small, practical things, not complicated ones, and they can save you real time during an ordinary week. At the same time, it's completely reasonable to have questions and even some hesitation. You might wonder if it's safe to type personal information into a program like this. You might wonder if your questions are being saved somewhere, or if you're somehow supposed to already know how all of this works before you even try it. You might even wonder if this technology is somehow going to replace the things you value about talking with a real person, and that worry deserves respect rather than a quick dismissal. None of those feelings are silly, and none of them mean you're behind. Every single person who uses these tools today started exactly where you are right now, typing their very first question and hoping they were doing it correctly. As we go through more lessons on this channel, we'll talk about safety, privacy, and how to use these tools thoughtfully, one topic at a time so you never feel like you're guessing. For today, the simplest and safest way to start is to treat it a little like writing a letter to a stranger you don't fully know yet. Avoid typing things like your full bank details, your social security number, or your home address, the same caution you'd use with any new website. Everything else, your everyday questions and curiosities, is exactly what these tools were built to help with. Let's bring it all together and go over what we covered today. Artificial intelligence is a computer program trained on a large amount of writing and information, which allows it to notice patterns and respond in a way that feels like conversation. A chatbot is simply a program built this way that you can talk with by typing. Think of that program as your phone's word suggestion feature, but far more capable, able to offer full answers instead of single words, or think of it as a very well-read librarian who answers your questions directly instead of handing you a book. And you saw exactly how simple it can be to use, typing a plain question into a website and receiving a plain, helpful answer within seconds, with the program even remembering what you already asked. Nothing about that process requires special training or technical knowledge. It simply requires typing a question the way you'd ask a friend and reading the answer that comes back. It's completely normal if some of this still feels new. Learning something new at any age takes a little time to settle in, and that's exactly why we're taking this slowly together, one lesson at a time. If you have a question about anything we covered today, or if something wasn't clear, please leave it in the comments below. I read every one of them, and there's a very good chance someone else watching has the exact same question sitting in their mind. In our next lesson, we'll look more closely at ChatGPT itself, what it can do, what it can't do, and how to ask it questions in a way that gets you the most helpful answers. That's it for today's lesson. See you in the next one.